Ladies and gentlemen, may I please have your attention? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are now live with BB3 TV.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing tonight? I hope everyone had a great weekend and is getting geared up to head into work on Monday. I'll tell you what, it's been a great weekend. I got to see a lot of friends. I got to meet up with some new friends, and it's been a great time. It's been great. So we're excited today. This is going to be an awesome show. We're going to be going down the rabbit hole today. We're going to be talking about things that are not very touchy-feely, things that people don't like to get into and kind of afraid to talk about sometimes. We're going to dig into all of it today. And I have a good friend of mine who's going to be joining me today, super knowledgeable. His name's Randy. He's been on my show in the past. Super great friend. And I had the pleasure of hanging out with him again today. And we're going to dig into some of this stuff. But first thing I'd like to do, as I always do, let me know where you're watching from. I like to know where everyone's at, how everyone's doing. How you doing, Kelly? It's good to see you. Just pop in, say hi, and then we're going to get this thing fired up. And I'm hoping I can get my brother-in-law to jump in, because he is a big-time flat earther, and he makes a convincing argument if you want to go down that road. Yeah, I'm not as easily convinced, obviously, but hey, it's all part of good entertainment. You're still stuck in Florida dealing with health. I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully you can get clear of that and get your butt up here. Looking forward to meeting you in person. How you doing, Tim? Thanks for jumping in here from Northwest Illinois. Really quick, I'd like to take a second, and I just want to let Taryn know over there on the Paranormal Brew how deeply sorry I am for your loss. She just came home from work. Her mother was in to see her, and unfortunately, she found her mother deceased in her bathroom. So my heartfelt condolences go out to Taryn over there at the Paranormal Brew, who also hosts our show along with BB3. So Taryn, we love you. We're 110% here behind you, and just you have our deepest condolences and our sympathies. So I'm so sorry for what you had to endure in finding that. So, you're in my thoughts and prayers. So with that said, Facebook user, I'm going to probably take a gander. That's probably Lisa. I'm not sure. I'm going to go ahead and bring my buddy Randy in, and we're going to get the show going. How's it going, brother?
I'm doing well. It was good to see you today, and it's been far too long. So that was a really nice moment to see both of you and Mo.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Oh, nope, this is the wife. Okay, that was the wife. You're showing up as Facebook user. Yeah, man, it was good to see you. And you've been out traveling in the West. You lived out there. You moved from where we met you in Elizabethtown and moved out there out west. And like I was jealous. All the stuff you're posting, all the pictures. It's like, man, this is what I want to do with Hizzys travels when I finally get on the road and start getting out west and having those experiences that you've been posting about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something we were living out there for 2 years, and we do intend to go back there eventually. I'm staying here in the East for now to help out some family members, and it was something we wanted to try to do. We thought about it for years, and it got to the point where, with right after COVID, it was just like, okay, selling the house was a good time to sell the house, bad time to buy one. So, and I knew moving 2,000 miles away, I would want to rent someplace first until I knew exactly where I wanted to be. So I said, well, it wasn't a good time to buy a house, so we'll just hold off for a while and just rent. And that gave us the opportunity to I put 25,000 miles on my truck the first year we were out there. So
That's
that gives
crazy.
some idea how much driving we did and exploring. And we were living in Wyoming, and we explored lots of Wyoming and Montana, Idaho, Utah, a little bit of Colorado and northern Arizona. And it was nice to also get away from the East Coast. I've lived here most of my life, about a year and a half in Oklahoma, but other than that, most of my life's been East Coast, and it was nice to go experience something different.
I'm sure, man. Like that was from my experience going out to Colorado when I went out there for my CDL. I mean, that was some of the best experiences of my life. Just getting out there in the Rockies and seeing the beauty, the grandeur of that place. And it was just a small taste. There's Wyoming and Montana and all these beautiful places, Colorado in the mountains, Utah, as Kelly, these are beautiful states. And, we're
Amen, Kelly.
and we're stuck, you get stuck in the place that you're in, because whatever your economic circumstances or, the economy really affects what you're able to do, where you're able to go, where you're able to travel, live, and all of us are kind of scratching and crawling, just even, make it down to the grocery store and buy a basket of groceries. Just the small cart costs $150 this day and age. It's and when gas prices were up there at like $4 a gallon, I mean, you can't afford to travel and do those types of things. So that's tough. I mean, if you want to do it, it's not easy to just pick up and move. You know what I mean? You guys did it. I'm still don't know how you did it.
Yeah, well, I will say there was an economic hit to it, and because when you go to renting a place, then all of a sudden all that money that you had basically built up in having a home, you've taken that money out, and now you're renting, and that money's just going to somebody else, and you're not getting the benefit of any of it really. So, but it did something for us. We were able to determine after moving back, especially noticeable after moving back to Pennsylvania, that we want to be back out west. And, it's in our bones now. My wife even says that it's just like she was anxious to come home and see all her friends, and she was really excited about it. But within a week, it was just like, she goes, I want to go back out. I want to go back out. So
yeah, and look, the mentality is so completely different. The way people treat you here in the East Coast as opposed to the way you're treated out west, it's completely different, and it's the same in the South. They're just that's so different for whatever reason. It's just my personal experience. Is up here in the North, people seem to be a little bit more aggressive. A little bit more.
Yeah, well, and I'll say one of the key elements, one of the things that stood out to us was, you have long distances between towns in Wyoming. You've got a state that's much larger than the state of Pennsylvania, but the entire population of the state is only marginally greater than the population of Lancaster County. And so you've got a lot of long distances to drive, but you'll be driving down the highway. It's 70-mile-an-hour highway. If you see 5 cars in 25 miles, it was rush hour. Busy. And
that's rush hour.
Yeah, that's rush hour. And vehicles coming the other way, they don't know you don't know them. You're driving past each other at a closing speed of 140 miles per hour, and they wave to you. And I would say probably three out of every 4 vehicles, the driver coming the other direction will wave to you, even though they don't know who you are. Did I drop out?
You did for a second, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But yeah, so I will say, anybody who hasn't been out there yet, you got to put it on your bucket list. You got to go for a while.
It's going to happen. That's going to happen. It's going to happen. I have to. I'm eventually going to move out there. I think I'm going to probably retire. Part of it for me is I love the Civil War. I love the history of the Civil War. So for me, picking up and leaving Gettysburg, and leaving a plethora of battlefields. Now there's a lot out there. So you figure let me see here. What do you have? You've got the West, the history of the West, like, the like Deadwood and Tombstone,
Cody, Wyoming with
Cody,
Buffalo Bill. Yep.
Jackson Hole.
Bill too. Yep.
These are, hey, what's up, my guy? That's Dom. This is one of the owners of BB3 TV right there.
Awesome.
We always appreciate Dom for hosting our show. I must admit, Floridians may not be able to drive, but they are respectful as long as you're off roads. Everyone holds doors, smiles, says hi. I got to be honest with you. The thing about Floridians, when they drive up here in Pennsylvania, the biggest problem that I have is that they sit their butts in the left lane and they don't move. They'll sit their butts in the left lane and go the speed limit when I want to be going 30 miles an hour over the speed limit. So get out of the left lane. It's gorgeous. I can totally vouch. You love it all. Yeah. Well, so Becky took the kids all the way across the country. They drove all the way across the country out to Oregon. I think it was Oregon, wasn't it? And they stopped at some really awesome places on their way out there. Hey, Facebook user. I'm not exactly sure who you are, but thank you for jumping in. Hey, check it out here. Oh, if you like green, the east of the Bighorns in Sheridan or Buffalo, you'll get green. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we forgot to tell you that today.
Yeah, you didn't mention that part.
Yeah, we were on the west side of the Bighorns, but just on the other side of the Bighorns. You don't want to be eastern Wyoming, but if you're just on that edge of the Bighorn Mountains, it's just stunning there.
She's like, hey, I'm from Florida. Plus, they have 6-lane roads here, and these drivers will drive side by side 15 miles under the speed limit. Oh God, that drives me crazy. That drives me absolutely crazy.
I got something for you coming home.
Hey, Cheryl.
We took a different route coming home, so it was almost an hour and a half drive coming home from seeing you today. And by the time we're in our town and just getting into our town, there was 2 cars ahead of us. Somebody was driving consistently 15 miles per hour under the speed limit. And you know how bad it is when you're like close to home and you really need to take a waz.
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh no. Now, I mean, I might as well be behind an Amish buggy. This person was creeping. And it was just like, oh, please get out of the way.
Oh, see, Becky was in Wyoming for 2 weeks. I still hate you for that, by the way. I still hate you for that. My kids have had more experience in the West. I did go out there. Becky, by the way, she's my ex-wife. We went out. She's my kid's mother. I went out to Fort Lewis in Washington for my train up to get deployed. There it is. Hey, Rum, this is Lisa. If you can't, she's got her name up there. There you go. Lisa's on here too. Rum is a friend of mine. This is one of our good Call of Duty buddies, and he's damn good too. He's too good. Too good. So let's jump into it, man. Let's get into what we're here to talk about today. Yeah, so this stuff drives people nuts, but you know what? It has to be talked about. And one of the things we talked about a whole variety of topics today, and one of the things we talked about, and I do want to get into a little bit of, is this whole flat Earth thing and why people believe that there's a flat Earth and how you could even come to such a theory. But I guess some of their arguments are very compelling. For one, my wife's brother, Chris, okay, he is a big time flat earther, and he comes up with all these things, and I don't have enough to even shoot back at these guys, except for my own brain thinking, you're just crazy. I mean, we've seen the pictures of the Earth from satellites that are definitely in orbit. We couldn't communicate with people if we didn't have satellites in orbit. We couldn't communicate as quickly as we do. I don't think, at least not from what I've been told. Do you think we've been lied to about that, man?
Well, I'll have to say this. Just a few years ago, I started seeing, actually, it was somebody that I respect, that's fairly well known, very much into science. He's an engineer. He owns manufacturing facilities and chemical testing facilities and things like that. Out of the blue on his own podcast, he's like bringing up flat Earth. And I'm like, what the heck is he talking about flat Earth for? Now, he was not a flat Earth proponent. He was exactly the opposite, but he was bringing it up because he was saying that this was becoming a big new belief. You know, it used to be an old belief back in ancient days. Everybody believed in a flat Earth, and then
that's right
till they decided, oh, no, Earth is a globe. And I'm like, why is he talking about that? And then I started seeing it for myself, just on Facebook and YouTube, etc. And of course, my initial reaction is, what are these people just crazy? Are they dumb? Whatever. The same things that every single person reacts to. But then I realized, okay, you know what? I need to be intellectually consistent and honest, because there are a lot of things that I used to believe that I no longer do, because I've seen the evidence now for things that we were lied to about. And there's things, and it's all fields. So we've been lied to about things in health, and things in nutrition, and things in science, and things in politics and history. So
Yeah.
many things we've been lied to about. And once you realize that a lot of these things were BS in the past, well, then you start going down the rabbit hole. You find the next one, the next one. And I started going, well, if I'm going to be consistent, then I need to at least be open to the possibility that maybe the earth is flat, not a globe. And I wasn't convinced of anything. But I said, okay, I'm going to allow myself to see the stuff that they're presenting as evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think we need to, we always need to, I call it facts or friction. And that is, we need to be open to discussing the facts with somebody else. Just, we want them to believe what we believe just as much as they want us to believe what they believe. And you
Yeah, but
have to
who's deciding?
it has to
Who's
be a
deciding
two-way
what the
conversation.
facts are? I totally agree, but who's deciding what the facts are?
Right. And that's why we have to be able to be open, because if we're only about pushing our point of view and not being open to listening to the other person's point of view, you're going to come up to a wall, because people are going to bring the walls up. They're going to get defensive, because they don't see you as being open to what they have to say. So I think we all have to be very careful about that, and not just us offhand go, oh no, you're full of BS. And so to this day, I am not convinced in the flat Earth theory. But I have, like you said, I have seen things that go, okay, you made a pretty compelling argument. Let me dig into that deeper.
Right. The whole Arctic ice, this ice wall that surrounds the entirety of our part of the planet, or whatever it is you want to call this, so what we're living on. They say there's an Arctic wall, and that's what's holding the water in. Hold on a second. Who is froze? Who is froze? I
It's
don't
the
know.
person on the edge of the ice there. That's what.
Okay, so Kristen is a huge proponent
Yeah.
of the flat Earth theory, and they showed me, and I had the pleasure of meeting them in person. We had dinner with them last night. It was a great time. We love them. They're just her, as you can see, her and her husband in that picture down there. They're great people. We had a great time, and they're actually some of the first people that got put up on our wall of fame here the other day. But I got to tell you, when they started talking about that, my initial feeling is, I kind of look at you funny, you know. I need to find a room in Hershey area. Who's this? Who is this? There you go. So your husband has sold you on this. Well, I mean, look, I'm not the kind of person to sit here and pretend that I know everything. Things that we've been told, things that we have seen are definitely not what they are. And for instance, okay, I've recently come across something that is very convincing to me, that the people who were killed in the Challenger explosion actually aren't dead. They've actually found these people, or people that look exactly like them, who actually have the same exact name, only using the shortened versions of it, like Richard is Dick or whatever. And it's very compelling. But the question is, hey, what's up? Why would anybody? This is a dear friend of mine. She's also a Call of Duty friend. I have no idea why you're now a Facebook user. It's just so weird. It's so weird. The firmament is mentioned in the Bible, and that is the bubble over the earth, like a snow globe. But so what are we? Are we somebody's experiment? Are there like puppeteers? Is there like an alien race that we have been spawned from? Because look, here's the thing: human history, as far as we know, only goes back to what, some 20,000 some years, or before we were hunter-gatherer, like just simple hunter-gatherers. Here we go. Good luck. There's here for vitals. All right. I think that's Kelly. Good luck. I hope it goes well. If you have a chance, jump back in. We're here for an hour. The history has been rewritten. Now you say, well, we've been lied to about certain things that have happened in history. Maybe that's true, but I think that what's been taught us for most of our lives is the history that we think we know. But then you find and discover sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, that completely rewrite the human history. These were not just simple hunter-gatherers that built these megalithic sites out of stones that we have a difficult time moving with the equipment that we have to move them. These guys did this, and they carved these incredible works of art on the outside of the stone. It's not engraved into the stone. It's on the outside. What is it, embossed? What's the word for that? It's carved on the outside of the stone. It's on the outside. It's incredible. And the amount of time that it would have taken to do something like that, and the expansiveness of that site, it is mind-boggling. And that is during a time when we were just supposed to be simple hunter-gatherers. So
let me add to that.
Sure.
It may be that site or some of the others where they were saying this was Bronze Age, and so you could not carve these granite blocks with bronze tools because the bronze is softer than the granite. So, and then they would have almost absolutely perfect detail, smoothness, roundness, to the point of like a circle being an absolute perfect circle, not even a millimeter off across, like a 3 foot wide circle. And it's just like, how were they capable of doing that? So there's, it goes back to, I think there's been eras where we've reached technological innovations and then got wiped out. And then we start doing, it's kind of like, if you think about we have computers and things now. Well, if everything got kind of blown away, if you will, and then you only had, a few million surviving human beings on Earth, they wouldn't have the capability of producing computers even though they knew they existed. And eventually that would all get forgotten. We'd be starting from scratch again. And so I think you have lost information.
Well, that's what I think is happening. And you hear people say things like, did the aliens help them? Well, this takes us to, if there's a firmament, if there's actually what the Bible described as a firmament, and if we can't send rockets out of our atmosphere, how would anybody get in? So this is all part of this argument where it's
there's people like me who would say that the aliens are seen. There's two categories, I say, for the aliens. One is it's the stuff that our own governments are producing that they're passing off as alien because it's just top secret, high-end advancement stuff. And then the other part of it is, I think it's a spiritual element, and you're looking at demonic spirits that are masquerading as otherworldly aliens, which technically they kind of are, but and going back to like the one of the biggest biblical arguments I've gotten from people who support the flat Earth theory is, well, the Bible says the four corners of the earth, so the earth can't be a globe because there has to be four corners. But the thing that instantly in my mind was every representation from flat Earth supporters that I've seen has been the earth as a disc with a firmament, a bubble over it. And I'm like, well, there's no four corners there either. So, it's like, so that doesn't jive. It's just when there's a reference to four corners, it's a reference to the four cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. And that's kind of, we understand that today, and they understood that back then, that it's a reference to, it's a directional reference, not an actual physical corner. Because otherwise the earth would have to be either a square, a rectangle, some sort of parallelogram, a rhombus, it would have to have four physical corners somehow. So, but see that again, that's one argument that I hear, and then that's one argument I can counter. But that doesn't mean that every argument I've heard is an argument that I've been able to necessarily counter or convincingly counter. Maybe I believe what I say in encountering an argument, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they believe what I say encountering an argument. So I still say it's worthy to have the discussion, but I can. One thing I do respect when it comes to, or I've learned to do, is respect when it comes to people who have gone down the road and now believe in a flat Earth, is the fact that I can understand why. Because when you start seeing all the things we've been lied to about, and then you see the space station footage of they're supposedly the astronauts in the space station floating around, and you can see, oh, they forgot to take out the wire that's suspending the guy, or the guy is holding up a pencil and he drops it and it doesn't float, it just drops. You see a lot of footage of provably faked space station stuff, and
Mhm.
and I see that now, and it's like, okay, that doesn't necessarily mean that we've never been into space and nobody's ever been to space and nobody's there now, but it definitely means that what they're showing us in that footage right there was made up, it was faked. And I could certainly see why there would be motivation for the government to, say, NASA, to fake things, because they're getting funding, and that funding may be going to something completely different, but
Mhm.
they just have to pass it. They just have to fool us that it's about this over here when it's actually about this over there. So I could certainly
Okay.
see why people would open that door.
So I'm going to share on the screen here a map that was shared with me last night. And I'm going to go ahead and pop this up here full screen, and I'll take this comment down as well as this banner just to not have it in the way. This is okay, as you can see in the center. All right, you see in the center is our Earth, like the
Hmm.
our portion of our planet. This is supposed to be the ice wall
That
that
we
holds
can't get beyond.
all. What's that?
That we can't get beyond. Yeah.
Yeah, that right. Well, that we're supposedly not able to get through. But here's the thing. All right, do you see up here where this ba 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 ba? I don't know what the hell that is. Has this gap between it. Why can't anybody get out there? Why can't anybody get out through these things? And if they do, or if the water's held in by this ice wall, there's gaps there, big huge gaps, and we all know water will seep through the tiniest gap if it's able to. Then let's go to the outside ring. And this is a secondary ice wall, supposedly, with massive gaps in it. So where does it end? Where's the water go? What's holding the water in? So I think that this argument is one of the worst that I've seen just yet. But if you look, you've got these places outside of our world, so to speak, we'll
Hmm.
call it. You got Happus, you've got Gemania, you've got Pitatia, Thoth, the moving island. This stuff to me looks very made up and very, very suspect. I
And,
mean,
and I will say, I will actually, in defense of the flat Earth supporters, what I will say in defense of them is that, just like in any other subject, okay, there's there's going to be an element of the flat Earth people that believe that exact picture you just saw right there, and then there's going to be others that are going to say, "Well, I believe in a flat Earth, but it's not like that. That's complete bunk." And you never know, is somebody putting that out there? Uh, I think some people will truly believe it, but I also think some people will make up stuff like that and put it out there, kind of pretending to be, I'm one of you, and I'm showing you, here's what things are like, but they could actually
mhm,
be false, like a false flag kind of situation where they're putting it out there to actually discredit the people who believe that, because they'll
that's
make,
true.
I'll put something out there that's just so crazy, and then some people are going to believe it, and then we'll use that to discredit the whole flat Earth group. So I think the people who support flat Earth, not all of them believe that image, and the ones that do, they need to be careful that um, they need to be careful what they believe, because if that one right there, I don't think there's really any evidence for. There may be some writings or something that somebody wrote in the past in history, and so they're pulling that
Mhm,
together. But no, it is an element of faith that has to be taken for something like that.
right.
So,
But where
and
does all this, I don't mean to interrupt you, where does
yeah,
all this leave like religion, and God and what the Bible says? People keep referencing the Bible, talking about the firmament, but the Bible never talks about worlds. That's outside of heaven and hell. It doesn't talk about worlds outside of the world that we live in.
yeah,
Not to my knowledge.
yeah. It talks about the stars or something, but and it's referencing what we see in the sky, uh,
Mhm.
and so um, well, and even within the flat Earth community, there's still going to be people who are who believe in a heliocentric solar system, and those who believe in an Earth-centric solar system, where the Earth is the center of the solar system, and the sun's actually up in the firmament, just outside the firmament, and it just circles over top and around, shining down like a spotlight. And then there's those that believe that, okay, we face the sun and we're circling the sun. That's a heliocentric model, like our solar system that we believe in now. So it's kind of a cross between what we current conventional wisdom is and what the flat Earth wisdom is. So uh, there's a lot of nuance in all of this stuff, and you have to kind of play through it and go, okay, not just because somebody showed you this does not mean that every single member of that community also agrees with that.
That's it. Now, all you people watching today, right now, I mean, we already know where Kristen's at. Do you guys think the Earth is flat, or do you believe in the globe? Tell me what you think in the comments, and we'll put you up here.
Or
And
do you
if you
think
have
there's
something you want to
potential
add,
one way or the other?
yeah, I'd love to know what you think about that. So chime in, let me know where you're at. And if you'd like to, I can post the link. We'll bring you in the show. You can tell us what your own opinion is on this, which is what I should do. I could post this link. Let me see if it's still saved. I don't think it is. Let me do this. I'll copy it from here and drop it in the comments. If you want to join and give me your opinion on what you think, the link is in the comment section. So I personally don't believe it's a flat Earth. For as many times as I have been in an airplane, I've seen the curvature of the Earth. I've been airborne a lot. I've noticed the curvature of the Earth myself. I just don't think I don't think that every photograph that has been taken of the Earth is fake. I also don't think that we've seen actual video footage of astronauts in space looking down on the Earth. I don't think that was faked. I think the moon landing was probably faked. I think that we were in a race with Russia. I think we set up a whole thing. I do not believe that we set foot on the moon. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole that it would take us another hour to get through. But
And the moon landing one is one that within the past 2 years that I've come around to that conclusion too, that I believe the moon landing was fake, because there was a lot of motivation to fake that. I mean, especially now when you see you see NASA engineers and you see astronauts who say, well, why haven't we, when people ask, why haven't we gone back to the moon since 1973? And they say, well, we don't have that technology anymore. And you're like, wait, we don't have that technology anymore? Technology that was 50 years ago? Yeah.
exactly,
And I'm like, yeah, I'm not buying that.
far more advanced.
Right.
Eh,
And so it's understandable why somebody would say, oh, well, I believe they faked the moon landing, so therefore it's absolutely 100% that they're telling us that the Earth is a globe, so that's got to be false too. I can see going there, but that doesn't prove anything.
It just seems crazy to even have the conversation. I mean, you look up at the moon, you can see the moon with your own eyes.
I've
You
seen it through
can,
a telescope, and it's not like I'm looking through water or through anything.
exactly.
I'm not seeing a flat disk. All the planets are round, like globe-shaped structures.
Exactly.
I should say spheroid, because they're not
Yeah.
necessarily perfectly globes. But
Sure.
yeah.
Even the Earth is, spinning at the equator. It's actually more of an oval than it is actually a globe. Why don't you ask the Russians if it was a faked moon landing? They tracked every inch of Apollo 11. That's an interesting. Now, I'm glad Ralph said that, because that is kind of an interesting argument. If we were going to fake that, okay, if we're going to fake that, I think Russia would have called us out on it pretty quickly. I agree with that, but there's elements to it. that just say, I think there were certain aspects that they definitely embellished, like
The live
taking off
broadcast.
from the moon, the filming, like you talked about earlier today at lunch, filming the lunar module lifting off from the planet, having it readily available when digital photography and didn't exist until decades after that. These guys had ready access for the film that they took off the moon.
When the landing module lifted off from the moon, and supposedly that was broadcast live with some delay, obviously, for transmission, but that was broadcast live to like the whole world. And it's like, okay, there's nobody there filming it, but you're seeing the camera tilt up, and I'm like, okay, maybe they had some kind of remote technology to make the camera do that, or was programmed for that. But the thing was, they were using film in that era. They didn't have, they weren't doing digital imagery. So film has to be processed. I mean, I processed film in college, because I went to college in the 80s, and you have to process the film before you can broadcast it. And this was being instantaneously broadcast thousands of miles back to Earth. I'm like, okay, that's a serious question.
It's confusing.
Yeah, and there's been astronauts and NASA engineers that were around at that time that have since, they're in their 80s now. Somebody asked them a question about the Mars, or excuse me, not Mars, but the lunar landing, etc. And they've said, we didn't go. We weren't there. That, they basically admitted that, now, does it mean that we've never been to the moon? I don't know, but there's definitely been moon landings that have been faked, because you can prove it in some of the film and whatnot. So again,
yeah, I've seen that Discovery Channel program that they put on about the legitimacy of the lunar landing, and I just, some of the stuff that they put on that program was very convincing to me. But again, like I said, we could argue this. We could we could argue this all day long. We are bioengineered planted like seeds. So Christiana, you think that where would we have come from if that was the case? Engineered by who? I mean, because if you take faith and Christianity and religion out of the equation, and then you bring in the theory of evolution, we evolved from an ape, essentially, Cro-Magnon man up through, and we evolved into this. So what would be your basis? That simplifies it. Someone smarter than us. Well, that's a pretty simple answer for that one. Yeah. Buzz Aldrin slipped up and said something like that not long ago.
Yeah.
Buzz Aldrin also punched somebody in the face when they said the moon landing was fake.
Fake. Yep.
But so who do you think the gods are? Well, again, we can get into religion and Christianity and faith. I just believe there is a creator. I believe that I do believe the creator put his a man on the planet named Jesus Christ, and I believe in the Trinity. That's a faith thing for me. So again, a lot of this comes down to having faith. And if the government hasn't proven to you by now that having faith in them is probably a dumb thing to do, you need to wake up. I don't trust anything that these people try to feed me anymore. I think you're foolish to believe it. It was Stanley Kubrick who filmed Lance Armstrong.
No, I don't think it was Lance Armstrong. That's the bicyclist.
I think Monica screwed up and said Lance. Yeah, it's Neil Armstrong, honey, not Lance. And I didn't even catch that. Yeah, that's okay. But again, so now we're talking about the government. Why would the government, lie to us? Why? I honestly, and this is my own personal theory. This is not based in fact. This is an opinion, Facebook and YouTube. So understand that I'm not putting this out there as fact. It's a personal opinion. Okay. My personal opinion is this is their way of taking little snippets of control of the human race. I think there are certain elites that want to have control of everybody because it's all comes back to one thing, and that is money and it's power. So it's two things. It's money and power.
I would say power even more than money. I think the top tier have so much that money's not really the object for them. It is the power, and
How you
money's the,
doing?
money's the way to get to the power usually.
Absolutely, but that's the end game. It's a control thing, and it's an end game. Um, the end game is to ultimately, this is for entertainment purposes only. Yes, yeah, it is. So, but the reality of it is, okay, these people, they the biggest the biggest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he didn't exist. All right. That is the same thing with the government and its provision of freedom in the United States. We perceive freedom as being able to walk out and do anything we want. We walk out our front door, we can go anywhere we want. The reality of it is, they have been systematically eliminating the middle class for decades. Okay. And they're doing that because the middle class was the biggest provider of freedom, essentially, in America, because you could just go out, you could afford to go on little vacations. You could afford to do this and that. Right now, the most you can do is just go down the street to the park. A lot of people can't even afford to do these simple things anymore because inflation has gone up so much. Wages have stayed completely stagnant, and nobody can afford to keep up with the way things are going. And it just becomes another way of controlling you and keeping you where they know they can keep you and control you. The silent oppression is real. Oh, 110%. So that brings me over to, and I know I kind of jumped around a little bit there, but like 9/11, why would this is going to really ruffle some feathers? Why would the government orchestrate something like 9/11? Or why would they allow something like 9/11 to happen? And I say, well, there's people that they didn't allow it. We were attacked. And I'm sorry, but I call BS on that. We were definitely attacked, but it was not by some unskilled pilots who could barely fly a Cessna airplane and flying a massive 757 jet airliner, which takes incredible skill to control, especially at low altitudes, and fly it precisely into the side of the Pentagon, exactly where Donald Rumsfeld the night before talked about there being billions of missing dollars.
It was $2.3 trillion.
Trillions.
2.3 trillion dollars of money that the Pentagon could not account for. And I'm like, I know what that is. That's all these dark projects. They were taking that money and using it elsewhere, but they can't. They're being audited. Yep. And so, yeah, he announces it at 4:00 in the afternoon, and then the next morning, that exact wing, and there's no video footage of the jet slamming into the building. When they have cameras everywhere around the Pentagon, and they would have tracked that thing flying in. They know exactly where those aircraft
You
are.
could have seen that coming for miles. As soon as that plane would have left its prescribed trajectory, that would have been on the radar, especially around all of these government institutions that are right there. And you can't tell me that they don't have the kind of video technology. You can see that plane coming from a mile away. I guarantee you they do. Why won't they just shut people like me up and put that video on the internet for everybody to see? They haven't, and they won't, because it did not happen. A jet airliner did not fly into the side of the Pentagon. If that had happened, all right, if that had happened, a couple of things. What are aircrafts made out of? Aluminum. You're not going to tell me that an aircraft made of aluminum, that if it hits the ground too hard on a landing, it separates from its wings. Okay, the wings literally break off the aircraft. The tail section falls off the aircraft, penetrates 5 or 6 walls of the Pentagon. It penetrated 6 walls. I don't think so. And it stayed intact enough to even get through 1 or 2 of them. I would have been baffled. But aside from that, there's no engine parts. The only aircraft parts you see are just small sections of what could have been dropped there by anybody. We're talking about 4 massive engines that have titanium fins, okay? inside of them to withstand bird impacts and anything that hits those, they were nowhere to be seen. There was one rotary engine fin that was big enough to be the size of a Tomahawk cruise missile.
Well, and I'll tell you, if you go to the Twin Tower situation, and I'll say this, early on, the first couple of years after 9/11, I would get into debates with people from the opposite direction that I debate now. People were telling me, oh, it was, it didn't happen the way the government said it happened. And even though I wasn't 100% like, I trust everything the government says, I was never like that. But I still kind of believed the whole story. But over time, there was just too much evidence that you could ignore. And one of my favorite organizations in relation to that is Architects and Engineers for Truth. These are professional architects and engineers, thousands of them, who all say that the way the towers fell, what happened when the planes hit, et cetera, even the government NIST, National Institutes for Standards and Technology, the NIST story for how the towers collapsed and everything, none of it makes any sense from an engineering and architectural perspective. And like, for one example, we've heard, and is this true? And I've checked, and this is legit, that they say, well, the Twin Towers were designed to handle the impact of a Boeing 707 traveling at 600 miles per hour without collapsing. And it was not a 707 that hit the towers; it was a 767. And they said that the technical comparisons show that the 707 that they're talking about, that they were designed for, has more destructive force at cruising speed than the 767 that hit the towers. So these towers should not have collapsed, and definitely shouldn't have collapsed with both of them, and definitely shouldn't have collapsed within their own footprint, basically.
At free fall speed.
At free
zero
fall
resistance.
Speed. And then you shouldn't have had, most people don't even realize that there is a third tower that collapsed, Building 7.
Building 7.
And Building 7 was never hit by an aircraft. Now, there was some debris that did hit the building on one corner, but the building came down just like the others as basically like a pancake.
Yep.
And the whole building came down, and they're saying, well, that was because of a structural fire inside. Yet the whole entire building was not engulfed. And that one definitely makes absolutely zero sense. You're not going to have a building collapse in its own footprint like it was a demolition job. If you just have a little bit of damage on one corner, and it's a steel structure building with fire retardants on the structure, and it's just an office fire inside the building, then those were some of the things. There's so many more, but there were some of the things that I'd like, okay. Initially, they say, oh, fire doesn't melt steel. I used to say, well, that's a stupid statement. Of course, fire melts steel. My grandfather had a cast iron foundry. My uncle had a cast aluminum foundry. And how do you make aluminum, molten aluminum or molten cast iron? You use fire. But it was when I came to the realization that the temperatures needed to melt steel, the jet fuel doesn't reach that temperature, and office fires don't reach that temperature. So how did you get to the point of having molten metal at the base of the building, and molten metal actually visibly being seen pouring out of one of the towers? So yeah, those were the things that my own arguments were starting to collapse for me. And over time, there's just more and more and more things that told me, no, I don't buy the story at all.
This is also a good argument that Shane makes here. Where are the black boxes? They're designed to take a nuclear strike, and they're true. The black boxes have never been, well, at least if they've been recovered, they haven't been released. Let's take a second, and guys, I want you guys to watch this again. Watch Building 7 collapse. It's not on fire.
Well, it's sort of on fire, but it's not, the whole thing's not engulfed.
Right, but for the entire thing to collapse, look at that. That is at free fall speed. That came down in less than 5 seconds. And that right there shows you it did nothing on the bottom of that building, gave out, and it came down on its own footprint. There was, if anything, that portion of that video right there, if you look at the side of the building, okay, look how there's no damage on that building as it's collapsing. There's no damage at the base of that structure as it's collapsing. Not that we can see. Now look here, nothing. That building is coming down at 0 resistance. Look at that.
Yeah, if it was coming down like from the top, like this is what the engineers were talking about. What it would do is it would pancake. You'd have a collapse, and then it would hit resistance, and then it would maybe go break through that resistance, and it would go boom, 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 boom. But this just like all the supports were taken out at each level ahead of that
Yep.
top level coming down.
That was definitely and unequivocally a controlled demolition. And it's the same exact thing with the Twin Towers. I mean, listen, it was the first time in the history of the world a building collapsed within its own footprint with 0 resistance at free fall speed. The first time in history building, a steel frame structure built to withstand the impact of a 707 came down in its own footprint untouched.
And
now
also,
listen,
there's never been any sense either.
Exactly. Now, I want to make a statement on this, okay? There are thousands of people that lost their lives that day. I am not taking anything away from the lives that were lost by putting this type of an argument out there. My heart goes out to all the families who were affected by this. There was innocents that were taken, people's lives that were just ended for no reason whatsoever. Okay, but you cannot drink the Kool-Aid and think that this had something to do with Osama bin Laden and some random terrorists flying airplanes. Listen, the tower was hit at 9 something in the morning, the first one, or was it? I forget the times, and it doesn't matter. At a certain time, the tower was hit by an aircraft. Okay, we have a problem. A tower was just hit by an aircraft. Okay, a second tower at the same location was just hit by an aircraft. Oh, we are under attack. Now, we know there's two other aircraft that are out there that need to be controlled, or they're off their patterns. You're going to tell me that I don't care where you are in the country, we cannot scramble fighter jets that fly at Mach 90 to intercept these from even keeping another aircraft from flying into a government building and another plane. How much longer did it take for another plane to fly into the Pentagon? Wasn't it like an hour or more?
Yeah.
So you're talking about that much time, and they didn't have jets that could have stopped that aircraft from hitting the Pentagon? Baloney. Baloney.
Well, I'll give you one that really blew my mind. This was the one that was the first thing I thought of. Do y'all remember seeing the passports that they found in the rubble of Muhammad
unscathed?
And they're I mean, it's a little bit of a singe mark on one corner and just a little bit of a burn mark over here, yellow smudge. And I'm like, wait, they can't find human remains because they're so pulverized. And there's this fire that lasted for days, and they're molten metal and everything else. But yet, they flew that plane into the building. The thing went into a giant fireball and then came down with all the rubble. And there's his passport that he had in his pocket. There's no body. The body's completely gone. But the passports we found all these passports of these supposedly 11 Saudis or something,
Yeah.
That's
a miracle.
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
It's a government miracle.
And the fact that people have drank this down and have just accepted it really bothers me because it's too obvious. It's way too obvious. You can watch video. And Christiana, to answer your question really quickly, what was in the area that was hit in the Pentagon? It was the records room, I think it was that, and it's where they literally house the records for the money, like where the records were kept.
Yeah, because they can't audit it once that plane hit the Pentagon and destroyed that wing. All the records were gone. They can no longer. There's no way to audit where the $2.3 trillion that he mentioned disappeared to. So it was very convenient timing.
Math ain't mathin'. Yeah, less scary. It's less scary and easier to accept than they were. Yeah, no. True story. So the thing. Okay, now we couldn't stop them from hitting the building when we have these incredible aircraft, these F-22s. I don't even know if we had them back then, but we still had F-16s. We still had F-15s. We had, I think the F-14 was still flying. I don't know at that point. We had A-10s and all kinds of this stuff all over the place. And we couldn't intercept an airplane from flying into our was heavily prized and protected building. I don't buy it. Now, why would they do this? What's the purpose? Well, did you notice that they were pulling a lot of gold out of the Trade Center when they just didn't get it all out? And a lot of that stuff was actually caught in the rubble. They found dump trucks full of gold. It all comes down to money. It gets us put into a war, gives us a reason to go to war with another country. And let's face it, war is big business. Again, this is just my opinion. This is my opinion. I'm not putting this out there as fact. This is for entertainment purposes only. But you start adding in, okay, the insurance policies alone on those buildings, how much that dude stood to make. It gets us put into a war. It gives us a reason to start. The industrial military complex gets fired up, and people start getting rich. That's the end of it.
Well, I used to laugh and think, oh, this is a liberal thing. When I used to hear for years, I'd hear liberals, or I prefer to call them progressives or whatever, leftists, using talking about the military-industrial complex, until I saw that came from Eisenhower's former general President Eisenhower's own address to the nation as he ended his presidency, and he warned about a military-industrial complex that was going to do all kinds of things that shouldn't be done. And it's just like, okay, so here was one of the greatest generals of U.S. history, who then became president of the United States, who, as he's exiting his presidency, is warning the country about a military-industrial complex. So, yeah, I mean, that was the 1950s. We're 70 years later, and you mean to tell me that all these wars and all these things going on, that it's just like, oh, I mean, we're how much money and equipment and whatnot are we sending to Ukraine? How many billions and billions and billions of dollars going to Ukraine? And now, oh, well, we're talking about, hey, we're running out of our own, anti-aircraft missile stock, and things like that. Mm-hmm. We're depleting our own stocks because we're sending them over there. But of course, now you've got all the different military companies that are producing. They're churning out right and left, making money hand over fist because we got to replace all that stock. Mm-hmm. So money's a huge motivator, powers, and also taking down other countries. I forget the general's name. He actually tried to run for president for the Democrat Party some years ago, but he said that when he was in the Pentagon, he was told how during the Bush administration there was a plan they were going to take out Iraq, Iran, Syria, Libya. There were 7 countries. They named them all. Bing, 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 bing. And how many of these have we been taking people out, going to war with? It's just like, oh my gosh, it's falling right in line with what was planned.
Yep, absolutely.
In theory.
Right. In theory. Exactly. It's just an opinion. Greed and gluttony.
That sounds like that's like the two of us. Which one of us is greed? Which one of us? I guess I'm gluttony. I'm the fatter one.
Well, I'm leaving that alone, brother. You probably eat a lot healthier than I do. I mean, you eat like the purest of stuff, and you're very cognizant of what you're reading labels and you're doing all that stuff. So, I don't think you're gluttonous by any stretch of the imagination, but we are getting close to wrapping it up here. But at the end of the day, the message here is don't believe everything that you are told to believe as soon as they tell you to believe it. Give yourself enough leeway to trust your instincts. Okay. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. You've been given an incredible gift as a human being to be very intuitive, and you need to trust your instincts. If it doesn't feel right, there probably is a reason for that. So trust that. And don't just swallow the pill. All right. Do your research, look into things, and just don't act on emotion. We all do the same thing. We all get wrapped up. We all get emotional, and then we make our decisions based upon that heightened sense of emotion. I joined the military. I went overseas because I believed that we were attacked before I gave it any serious thought, and realized that it just does not make sense that 3 buildings the first time in the history of the world collapsed on their own footprint at free fall speed. You can see molten steel pouring out of the side of the building. I mean, jet fuel's not good. Jet fuel will weaken steel, but jet fuel will not melt steel to a liquid state. It just will not do it. There's evidence that micro particles of thermite were found. Nanothermite was found. That is a military grade product. You cannot just get that in the general marketplace, and it's definitely not going to be found in an aircraft. So there's things that make you start questioning this and watching the buildings come down yourself. Okay, I'm not going to get into the fact that there's a whole theory out there that they weren't even planes that hit the building. There was direct energy weapons used. I'm not getting into that. Because that'll bring us full circle back. If there was a direct energy weapon, then it would have to be in space, and we can't get to space because there's a firmament. So it doesn't make any sense. Give me a sec here. So it's the same in the UK, giving money to all these war countries and reducing the military. Oh, from Liverpool. Hey, thanks for joining in. Well, the UK is just, I mean, I think the United States and the UK are all kind of part of the same crappy deal. When it comes down to it, will the military protect us or the government? I think, as a veteran, I can speak only as a veteran of the armed forces. If it was me and my brothers, I would say that myself and my brothers would never raise our weapons against an American citizen unless they were raising their weapons against us. If I was given an immoral order, I would disobey that order. I would never fire on an American citizen unless that American citizen was putting other lives in danger, and especially my friends and family. But at the end of the day, I think that most service members would not fire on other American citizens.
Yeah,
that's
I think
just my personal
feeling. The rank and file military in general, you don't necessarily have to worry about yet. And I say yet only because during the Obama administration, he kind of went nuts, like eliminating command level officers. A lot of generals and colonels, full bird colonels were let go, and there were only certain ones were brought up into place. And now you can look at what's commanding our troops now and see what they're doing, and they're actually trying, I think, drive the good, trustworthy people out of the military so they can be replaced by people who will follow orders, even if those orders would be unlawful and immoral orders.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're not at that stage where that's a majority of the military yet, but I think that's where it's heading. They're making that turn because I know a lot of people that would say, I'm at that age where I'm thinking about going into the military, and I won't do it now because I see what it's like. If it was like the way it was 25 years ago, I'd have joined in a heartbeat. Yep. And now they're like, no, I wouldn't go in the military. And I know a lot of service people that have said, oh, I wouldn't. I tell people now, don't go in now.
I'm one of them. Yeah. I'm one of them. So this is a double-edged sword for me because I am a huge proponent for serving your country. Mm-hmm. I personally think that, to be a citizen of the United States, I think it would be fair to serve your country. That's not what the founding fathers wanted. It's just not how they saw it. And I get that. But look at, Israel. Service is mandatory there. When you become 18, you serve the country. Different circumstances, and you're completely surrounded by countries who hate you. So that's a lot different. That being said,
there now.
Right.
Yeah.
But now you're going to have things like robots. You're going to have AI technology and all the stuff that's coming out now. They're going to get rid of the need for human manned flight. They can, if the government can use a drone, and if you have somebody who's controlling a drone that doesn't care if you're an American or not, they can use that against you. They don't need to use troops. So if you have troops who have independence, they think for themselves, they have feelings, emotion, and empathy. We don't need to use troops in a circumstance like this. Let's just use a drone. Let's use AI technology, and it'll do what we want it to do without any question. And that's what scares me about the new tech that's coming out.
I'd like to add something to that, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
I spent about 10 years basically dealing with and selling to the federal government and different levels of government, but also the entire federal government. So I dealt with every agency in the U.S. government. And like I've told people, I said, there's good people in the government. They're human. So you have people that are good, you have people that are bad, you have the people in the middle that could fall over one way or the other on either side of the fence. But the thing was, going back maybe about 6-7 years ago, I was showing some people some of these YouTube videos of some of the like the Boston Dynamics robots that they were showing, that Big Dog and Cheetah and things like that. So you have these 4-legged, 2-legged, whatever robots, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they have that. And I look at them and I tell them, now what you've just seen, a little bit frightening, kind of scary. You've got to, here's one that can run 60 miles per hour. Here's one that carry all these weapons platforms, things like that. I said, you realize the government will never let you see what they have now. So think about the stealth bomber. They had a stealth fighter and stealth bomber. They had the stealth fighter for over 25 years before, and they said, oh, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. That's just a conspiracy theory, until they used it in the Iraq War. And technology. So whatever you're seeing on YouTube that they're letting you see is 25 to 40 years behind what they have. So if you think that's scary, what you're seeing on YouTube now, just imagine that the technology is so far advanced. Think $2.3 trillion.
Yep.
That's a lot of, you could do a lot of technology in a hidden area for $2.3 trillion.
Oh yeah. Now check this out real quick. Watch this. I'm going to pop this in here, and we're going to watch a second of this. This is Optimus Gen 1 and Gen 2 robots from Elon Musk. Just take a look at these robots from Tesla. This is not a CGI. This is an actual working robot.
And that's a commercially developed one. That's not the military grade ones.
These robots can do an insane amount. I've saw a video here recently that showed the robot. Okay, this is interesting. Look at that. What? So there you see it. That is something that should make you be like, wow. That is how far robot technology has gone just in Tesla's world.
Just commercial technology.
Here we go. Hold on. Let's go back up here. So, all right. It makes me think of the Terminator with Cyberdyne. Okay. My kids can survive in the woods with nothing. I've done my jobs. Prepared for it to come to that. I was thinking the same thing. Exactly. They gave AI license to think for itself. Amen. I always tell everyone we're in the prequel of a dystopian sci-fi novel. Well, I just showed you that that's probably realistic. You're not too far off thinking that. You could go down another rabbit hole here if you notice it walks just like Joe Biden. Gotta love Joe, Sleepy Joe. Speaking of which, that's who we have. We got Trump, we got Biden. That's it. They are our nominees. Do you think we're going to have a repeat of 2020?
I'll say this: we may not have Sleepy Joe because they could take him out before the convention, and then just have Big Mike step in.
Jeez. This is the worst election I've ever seen. Yeah, this really hasn't been pleasant. And I think you throw in all these lawsuits that, like they're just hitting him with one thing after another, things that the previous presidents have not had to deal with. And there are previous presidents who have served this country who have done some really shady stuff that should probably have been indicted on certain different things. But whatever the case is, they're really targeting Trump. And why do you think that is? Because he's not part of the swamp. He's not one of the swamp creatures. He's not going to make it. No, I don't think I don't think Joe Biden's going to see another presidency. God forbid. I just don't. I don't think that he's cognitively even capable of handling. Look how he's handled it already. The first thing he did when he got into office was sign 100 executive orders ending all Trump era policy. Not because they're bad policies. He did it because I hate Donald Trump. That's no other reason besides that. That is not a good way to act as your first act as president. I'm sorry, it's just not. You don't think that because they can't. You don't think they can steal? They can do whatever they want. They can suicide you. He has his own issues, honestly. Anyone who's made that kind of money hasn't done it ethically. Just saying. What's the matter? What'd you say?
Because I think the audio was disappearing there for a moment.
Okay, gotcha. No, I think you have these political, and I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. I think it's on both sides. I think there are politicians who have become stupid rich in the service of their country on six-figure salaries worth hundreds of millions of dollars or several multiples of millions of dollars on a government salary. Is that just really good investing? Is that insider information being passed? What is it? How did they become so filthy rich? That's what I'd like to know. But that's going down a whole nother rabbit hole, and we're not going to do that because we are already 15 minutes past the hour, and we all have to work tomorrow. But thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Randy, dude, I appreciate you coming in and hanging out. My and pleasure. Talking. We could do this for hours and hours and just go because there's a lot to get into. And to be completely honest, there's a lot of things that I don't say on here because you get shadow banned. And I will most likely be shadow banned on Facebook for having said some of the things I've already said tonight. Even though I've said that it is all just opinion, not fact. We're not putting anything out as fact. I'll probably still get shadow banned because of it. They always do this. It's every time I have a conversation about anything that's political or against the left-leaning portion of society. I get pushed out, and it's probably going to happen again. And I don't care at this point. It's not like I'm making a ton of money on Facebook, and I'm losing a portion of my income. But I think it's important that people like us come out here and we speak what our truth is, but it's our version of the truth. It's our opinions. And that's really all it is. And as my dear friend Kristen has said, entertainment purposes only. So this is what we got. Both wings on the same diseased bird. Yeah. President can't do anything just like an actor. That's all. Yep, you're right. That is exactly right. A whole nother episode. Yeah. Yes, your husband did a wonderful job.
Thanks, wifey.
Against the sheep herd agenda. Yeah. They can't handle it. No, and that's the honest to God truth. When you're putting out the truth, and people start to follow it. When I first began doing this podcast, and it was right after the January 6th incident, which yes, I was there for. No, I did not go in the Capitol. I didn't go anywhere near that. I went out the back, and I went around to the front, and we pulled some people off the windows that were breaking the windows, and we left because it was getting out of control. But after that is when I started my podcast, and I was growing a massive following because people love to talk about politics in this country for some reason. And that's what I was doing. And my following was growing. But I got to tell you, it becomes toxic very, very quick. And it starts to suck the life out of you because people just hit you with their opinions and they don't want to hear what yours is, or they don't even care what yours is because theirs is right, yours is wrong. And that's the end of the day. That's the end of the story. And I just couldn't deal with that anymore. So where I do like to talk about it, where I do like sharing my thoughts and opinions on politics and the political landscape, it's just become a point where I think people are tired of it. And it casts a shadow of negativity over us where we're already completely immersed in negativity already, which is why you notice that on my Facebook, I try to keep things very positive and uplifting and light, and showing a better side of social media. We don't have to buy into it. We don't have to buy into the stories. We are thoughtful creatures, and we have to stop drinking the Kool-Aid that they're pouring down our throats loaded with fluoride. So let's just be good people to each other. Let's love one another. Let's pray for one another, and let's be good neighbors. And I think we could make a change in society if we take those attitudes. Thank you all so much for being here. I'll be here again on next Sunday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join me Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays over on TikTok. We go live, we kick back, relax. It's all about having a good time, going down the musical rabbit hole. My wife and I sit back here and we just have a good time. So come on out and enjoy and bring a beverage and have a good time listening to some music. We go down some crazy rabbit holes, and it's a great, great time. So Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on TikTok at DL Hizzy and Hizzy's Place. Thank you all so much for being here, Randy. I appreciate you guys, and we will see you all next week. Take care. Have a